What would you do if you were this man? You're a police captain, freshly promoted and honored for your outstanding service. But just as you're celebrating, you suddenly find yourself the prime suspect in a murder. Yeah, that escalated quickly. Even worse, the victim's body is found hanging in front of your own police station, like someone's taunting you. Could there be a sinister conspiracy hiding in plain sight? What would you do? Let's find out what this man chooses to do. Jang Sik is a respected officer of the Seoul Police Department. Thanks to his exceptional performance, he's just received a promotion and a certificate of merit. His superiors are pleased, his subordinates are proud. Back at the station, Jang Sik calls in Dong Jae, a rookie officer who's also close to his family. Jang Sik has always looked out for him like a younger brother. That evening, his colleagues take him out to celebrate his promotion, drinks, cheers, good vibes all around. They even gift him a classy tie clip, not knowing it'll soon become key evidence in a murder case. After the party, Jang Sik hops in a taxi to head home. He calls his wife and son, then dozes off for a quick nap. But when he wakes up, something's wrong. The taxi isn't heading toward his house. He asks the driver, but gets no response, only silence and a sudden burst of speed. Jang Sik flashes his badge, thinking that might scare him. Nope. The driver couldn't care less. In fact, he curses at him when being a cop just doesn't cut it anymore. Realizing something's seriously off, Jang Sik lunges forward to confront the driver. After a brief struggle, the car comes to a stop in a deserted area. Despite Jang Sik's threats, the driver pulls out a knife and stabs him repeatedly. This man knows exactly who Jang Sik is. He knows about the bribes Jang Sik took, the criminals he let walk free, the dirty deeds Jang Sik buried to climb the ranks. But the driver doesn't care about justice or revenge. He just believes, if Jang Sik dies, he'll be safe. Then he attacks again. They fight desperately, blow for blow, but in the end, Jang Sik turns the knife on the man and stabs him in the chest. He's shaken, in shock. He wants to call the police, but just then, the chief calls. He's sitting with someone from HR, singing praises about Jang Sik and promising a fast-track promotion. He tells Jang Sik, don't mess anything up tonight. Jang Sik pauses. No1 saw him. No1 knows. His eyes change. He makes a decision to cover everything up, relying on his years of experience. Jang Sik wipes the crime scene clean of fingerprints and evidence, and leaves. Just another night for a man with too much to lose. The next morning, all hell breaks loose. A body is found hanging from a crane right outside the Seoul police station. It's the driver. His corpse is dangling like a message. Jang Sik, still dazed, gets a call from Dong Jae and rushes to the scene. Detective O pulls back the cover, and Jang Sik freezes, his face pale. O notices and asks if he knows the victim. Jang Sik quickly denies it, but inside, his mind is racing. He watches his team collecting evidence, trying to stay calm. He drives back to the scene from the night before. Everything's already cleaned up. Detective O spots a suspicious taxi still parked nearby and asks Dong Jae to inspect it. Inside, Dong Jae finds the same tie clip they gifted Jang Sik last night. He doesn't tell anyone. He hides it. Loyalty can be a dangerous thing. The case stuns the whole country. The chief assigns Jang Sik to lead the investigation himself. The team combs through CCTV footage, tracking the taxi's route. Meanwhile, Jang Sik grows more nervous. Detective O says forensics just found skin tissue under the victim's nails, likely from the killer. Once they identify a suspect, they'll run a DNA match. The investigation progresses. Eventually, the team gets a lead. They race into Jang Sik's office, but it was only a dream. Back in reality, Detective O invites Jang Sik to explain the taxi's route. They believe the killer sat in the back seat and planned to track where he got in. Jang Sik quickly returns to the pickup location and memorizes the camera number nearby. Meanwhile, Dong Jae looks at the tie clip again, torn. He hides it when O walks in. He's struggling, torn between his loyalty to Jang Sik and his duty as a cop. Jang Sik returns to the precinct and tries to figure out who's reviewing footage near where he boarded the taxi. Finding the officer in charge, he casually chats and offers encouragement, then steals the CCTV disc when no one's watching. Professional cover-ups, 101. But Dong Jae suddenly yells out, he's found something. When everyone looks up, he catches a glimpse of Jang Sik's suspicious action, but says nothing. Instead, he shows them the footage, someone stuffing the driver's body into a car trunk. The whole team mobilizes. They chase down the suspect, Dong Han. He bolts the moment he sees them, like he's late for a marathon. After losing him in a maze of alleys, they split up. Jang Sik searches alone and notices a swinging light bulb. Someone just passed through. He carefully walks in. Suddenly, Dong Han attacks. Jang Sik fights back and chases him down a narrow alley, cornering him at gunpoint. Dong Han panics and confesses he only hung the body. He didn't kill the man. When Jang Sik asks who ordered him, Dong Han's behavior shifts. He starts raving like a madman, as if possessed, and just then, a voice crackles through the police radio. Jang Sik calmly ended the call, then grabbed his gun and started walking toward him. Dong Han realized what Jang Sik was about to do, panicked, and rushed at him with a tree branch. But Jang Sik, cold as ever, sent him straight to the afterlife. That tree branch clearly didn't come with a bulletproof warranty. As he turned around, he suddenly noticed Dong Jae standing silently behind him. Soon after, the other officers arrived at the scene. The chief reprimanded Jang Sik for shooting the suspect to death. Jang Sik took full responsibility, but his subordinates testified it was clearly self-defense. During the autopsy, the coroner discovered a highly toxic drug called metapol. It causes intense hallucinations and is extremely hard to get. This stuff makes regular drugs look like candy. The team concluded that the two suspects probably fought over the drug, leading to the fatal incident. On top of that, Dong Hun had hung the body at a construction site, further reinforcing the idea that he was the real culprit. Now all they needed was a DNA match from under the victim's nails to confirm it was Dong Hun. The chief held a press conference, saying that once the DNA test results were out, they'd be able to officially name the killer. The patrol team wanted to go drinking to celebrate the case being solved, but Jang Sik wasn't interested. When everyone left, he suddenly lost it and smashed things up at the bar. Who needs therapy when you've got chairs to break? Inspector O noticed Dong Jae looking deep in thought and called him over. Dong Jae asked if he thought Jang Sik had been acting strangely. O said he was probably just under pressure, new to the position and still shaken from accidentally killing a suspect. Meanwhile, Jang Sik kept replaying the words of the two men he'd killed. Realizing both had been using illegal drugs, he went looking for a known dealer. He barged in with a stick and gave the guy a beating before asking for info. Guess it was more of an interrogation by impact. The dealer admitted that the drug had been popular last year, but due to severe side effects, no one uses or sells it anymore. Some actors had even been arrested for using it. Jang Sik dug into those actors and found one that caught his attention. Cut to the chief storming into his office with test results in hand, demanding to speak with Jang Sik. Turns out, the DNA sample under the driver's nails didn't match Dong Hun. If that got out, they'd be ruined for killing an innocent man. Just the kind of plot twist no one wants in a police report. After thinking it over, the chief decided to falsify the report, saying it was the only way to quietly close the case, but to Jang Sik, the case was far from over. He still didn't know who was pulling the strings. He went to the talent agency of the actor he'd investigated but was told the man had quit long ago, and they had no clue where he was now. Eventually, the manager gave Jang Sik the actor's last known address listed in the contract. Meanwhile, Dong Jae went to the surveillance control center to retrieve a copy of the footage Jang Sik had secretly hidden. At the same time, Jang Sik arrived at the actor's house but found nothing. Dong Jae reviewed the footage and confirmed that Jang Sik was the one sitting in the back seat of the taxi. So much for hiding in plain sight. He arranged to meet with Jang Sik. While tending to Jang Sik's injuries, Dong Jae began opening up about the tie clip he found in the car, about the way Jang Sik hid key evidence, about the footage confirming Jang Sik was the killer. Dong Jae didn't know what to do. He hoped Jang Sik would handle things the right way. He left the evidence behind and walked away. Jang Sik sat there, lost in thought. The next morning, he sat in his car, holding the tie clip, deep in thought, when suddenly the actor's former manager called. He said that Jin Hyun-seo had heard Jang Sik was looking for him and agreed to meet. He was at a bar called Mojo. That name screamed trouble. Jang Sik drove straight there. The door was unlocked. He went inside and found a wall covered in photos, and a calendar with various dates and locations marked. Jang Sik called Inspector O and asked him to look into those marked places. Turned out all three were murder scenes, and the victims were police officers. All the cases were still open investigations. Inspector O read the names of the three victims, and Jang Sik was shocked. 15 years ago, he'd investigated a mass poisoning that killed 12 people. The lead investigator back then was the current police chief. They had many suspects, but no solid leads. Under pressure from the higher-ups and the media, they were forced to find a scapegoat, even if it meant framing an innocent man. That scapegoat was Bong-soo, a disabled man with signs of mental illness. They fabricated a confession saying he was abused by the casino and poisoned them in revenge. There were also 2 witnesses in that case, ironically, the same 2 men Jang Sik had killed. Bong-soo had a son who saw his father taken away. Childhood trauma. Unlocked. Kui, the actor, walked into the police station and turned himself in, saying he was the one who murdered the driver and hung the body on the crane. In the interrogation room, he asked to speak privately with Jang Sik, and the chief allowed it. Kui told them to turn off the mic before speaking. Jang Sik asked if he was the one who killed the driver. Kui replied, "No, I saw you do it." He'd seen it with his own eyes. At first, he planned to let it go, but after watching how irresponsibly Jang Sik handled things, he decided to confess instead. When Jang Sik told him to stop, Kui coldly said, "If you'd just died that day, none of this would be happening now." Way to put it bluntly. Kui turned out to be the son of Bong-soo, the innocent man falsely accused and arrested 15 years ago. Now, he was getting revenge on the police who ruined his father's life, and now Kui held the proof that Jang Sik had killed someone. Kui demanded that Jang Sik kill the chief by 9 p.m., or he would release the evidence. But Jang Sik refused and threatened to kill Kui instead. Kui didn't seem the least bit afraid, he even asked to be released. The chief asked Jang Sik if Kui was the real killer, but he said no, Kui was just rambling nonsense. The chief sent someone else in to interrogate him, but the results were the same, nothing but gibberish. Eventually, the chief decided to hand the case over to Captain Kang. After some thought, Jang Sik laid down his badge and gun. He tried to meet with the chief, but the man had gone out for a banquet at Olympic Park. When Jang Sik returned to the station, Kui had already been released. He immediately ordered his team to find out where Kui was, then went into his office to retrieve his gun. Meanwhile, Dong-yun, who was supposed to be tailing Kui, had lost track of him at Olympic Park. Once Jang Sik heard the news, he rushed there in a panic and tried to call the chief, but there was no answer. Then Kui called Jang Sik himself and said, "If you won't act, then I will." He hung up. As Jang Sik arrived, Kui called again and revealed that he had planted a bomb in the chief's car. Jang Sik ran as fast as he could to warn him, but it was already too late. Of all the police officers involved in the old case, only Jang Sik remained. Kui said he had spared Jang Sik so he could find the real killer who murdered his father. On the other side, Dong-yun spotted Kui trying to escape and immediately gave chase. Back at headquarters, Inspector Oh was reinvestigating Kui's father's case. Around that time, the police received a video showing Jang Sik at the scene of the driver's death. Simultaneously, news broke that the chief had died. Realizing these events were all connected, Inspector Oh took another look at the old case and discovered something new. While chasing down Kui, Jang Sik called Dong-yun, who was still tracking him, and told him to be careful. He also said he planned to turn himself in, but only after dealing with Kui. At the same time, Inspector Oh received a shocking new lead that left him stunned. Back at his bar, Kui opened a box and found 2 syringes. Smiling, he injected himself. Whatever was in that syringe clearly wasn't vitamins. Dong-yu arrived at the bar just as Inspector Oh called to ask for his help. By then, the drugs had kicked in. Kui began hallucinating, seeing visions of the boy he once was. He hugged the imaginary child like he was clinging to the last piece of his soul. Then Jang Sik stormed in and pointed his gun straight at Kui. Kui confessed, he was just an actor, hired by someone he loved, someone who had asked him to play this role. That person was Dong-yun. Meanwhile, Dong-yun went to meet Inspector Oh. The inspector aimed his gun and pleaded with Dong-yun to stop, saying he knew the truth. But he couldn't bring himself to shoot, he still cared for Dong-yun. Sensing an opening, Dong-yun struck first. A brutal fight followed, but in the end, Inspector Oh had the upper hand. Still, he hesitated to finish it. And because of that moment of mercy, Dong-yun raised his gun and pulled the trigger. He couldn't stop, not until his revenge was done. Back at the bar, the actor Kui lay dying. He begged Jang Sik not to kill Dong-yun, saying Dong-yun meant everything to him. Then he passed away. Right then, Jang Sik received a call from his son. Dong-yun was with him. Jang Sik pleaded with Dong-yun not to hurt his family, promising he would clear his father's name, find the true killer, and execute him in front of Dong-yun. Dong-yun agreed and set the final meeting at the park. On his way there, Jang Sik reflected on everything, and saw Dong-yun's shadow behind it all. The rain poured down as he arrived. He pointed his gun at Dong-yun and demanded to know where his son was. After confirming his son was safe, Dong-yun began to speak. 15 years ago, Dong-yun had a disabled father. The two of them lived modestly, depending entirely on one another. His father worked at an underground casino to support them. One night, he didn't come home. Dong-yun, worried, went to the casino and found his father being beaten and humiliated, while everyone else just stood by and laughed. To protect the man he loved most, the boy poisoned the tea they drank. Everyone died. All 12 of them. The truth was, Dong-yun had killed those people. Not his father. But the police ignored his confession and pinned everything on the man, fabricating evidence and twisting testimony. After learning his father had been executed, Dong-yun changed his name and vowed to live for revenge. Dong-yu asked Jang Sik what he planned to do now. Didn't he say he would execute the real killer in front of Dong-yun? Just then, the police arrived. They didn't know the full story, they only saw Jangsik pointing a gun at another officer. Mi Young-ho screamed for her father but was held back. The scene was hauntingly similar to when Kui's father had been taken away. Another man, seen as a murderer by his own child, the officers shouted for Jangsik to drop his weapon. Dong-yun, broken inside, begged him to pull the trigger because he couldn't go on living anymore. But Jangsik raised his gun to the sky and emptied the clip into the air. It was a scream of pain, not violence. As he dropped the gun, police rushed in and arrested him. He remembered Dong-yun's tearful confession and said, "You and your father were good men. Not monsters. Live on. Be someone better." Then he walked away. Dong-yu, overwhelmed by grief, pulled out Inspector O's gun and ended his own life. A tragic full stop to a life of vengeance. Jangsik rushed in and held Dong-yun's lifeless body, crying out in despair. He was arrested, now a murderer in the eyes of his own son. Just like Dong-yun, 15 years ago, when he watched his own father taken away, and that is the end of the film. A rollercoaster of twists, turns, and heartbreak. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this summary, give us a like and subscribe for more intense stories like this.